I'm Carrie Gouskos. I'm the producer for Warhammer Online.
I'm Andy Belford, community manager for Warhammer Online. And Dark Age of Camelot. And Ultima Online.
Okay, the questions. The announced RVR pack, I read about it, and what will happen with sovereign armor or new armor sets? Can you say something about it?
We are going to be introducing new high-level armor in the RVR pack. So sovereign armor will still be important, obviously for people who are trying to make their way up through the new renown ranks, but there will be new armor for them to attain in higher renown ranks.
And do you think that the gap between low realm rank players and high realm rank players will be not too far?
It's a concern, of course. So we're doing a lot to basically bring down the lower levels, make them easier to attain. So we have a lot of players that have made their way up to the high renown ranks, but obviously for those who haven't, or for new level 40s, we want to make sure that we can get them up as quickly as possible. So part of the RVR pack is going to have things that will make the low levels a lot easier to get through, as well as the lower level armor sets easier to get. We haven't figured out how we're going to do that, but we talk about, for example, maybe Annihilator will be available on the store, just as an example.
And what is with new zones for RVR, greater zones?
Yes, we have. We are saying that we are going to have a new RVR zone experience. There's a new zone, but we haven't completely finished giving out all the details about what that is yet. But it will hook into the campaign. So one of the things we wanted to make sure we did was not make the campaign irrelevant. We wanted to make sure there was still value, but we want to change the campaign to give a new, fresh gameplay experience. So that's a big part of it, is the changes that we're making to the way in which you play through the Tier 4, and then also this new zone is going to hook in to the campaign. We're still working through how that's all going to work, but we have some pretty cool ideas.
Okay.
One thing that we can definitely say, though, is that we're trying to make so it doesn't take away from the campaign. It's not going to be the new zone that, everyone's going to flood there because it's the new cool thing. It's going to be a kind of an organic part of the campaign.
And it's an RVR zone only, so it's not competing with some players who do PvE or some players who do RVR and splitting it like that. This is an RVR zone, so players, when they were going to go fight there, they're going to want to all go there.
Can you say what size it will have? One normal zone, or?
That's not something we're ready to talk about just yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What about active realm abilities, like in Dark Age of Camelot? When you raise the RVR cap, we're definitely going to have incentives in the higher renown rank stuff. We're still working through, kind of looking at the whole thing from the bottom to top. As mentioned, we want to make sure that the low levels become a little bit easier to attain, and so we're really evaluating that. And we will be dealing with the renown reward system and all of the abilities that come out of that as a part of that.
There's a lot of things that we're not quite ready to talk about yet, and things like career balance and stuff like that is definitely kind of in that. We want to tell you, but a little bit more time.
Okay, you are not ready to talk about it. Will we see the RVR pack in this year or in the next year?
No comment. One of the things that we have said, though, is that all of our focus is on this right now. So we're not going to be doing 1.3.6 just launched a couple days ago. So we're not going to be doing any more. Probably not. If everything goes well, we probably won't be doing any more versions. So you can get a sense. It's we're focusing on this.
So maybe this year.
Maybe.
Okay.
But we're not giving a date right now.
Sure.
Maybe this year is also we're not giving a date.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
Okay.
We have announced definitely before 2 years. Definitely.
Before 2012.
So,
definitely before 2 years. So before the end of the world.
Yeah. It's better than it's done when it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned Skaven, and that it will not be playable as a race from 1 to 40.
Yeah.
So, any hints how you plan to use the Skaven?
Well, so specifically, we're not treating Skaven like careers. I don't want to give people the hope or the false sense that we're making new careers.
and that's what it is. But we know that people love Skaven. We know that people love being Skaven. So we're doing something that I think is kind of interesting, but it's not a career Skaven that you get and you play through, and do that. So it's working with the Skaven in an interesting way, but not abandoning the character that you have.
And in the same
maybe NPC race, third faction thing.
It's definitely a unique idea that I don't think, or a unique take on this idea that I don't think anybody's seen before yet.
Yeah.
So, but I can tell you this is it's along with everything that we're doing for this RVR pack, it is focused on RVR. So you can be sure that whatever we do with the Skaven will have a strong focus on RVR. RVR.
Wait, what was that, Andy?
RVR.
Oh, RVR. Got it.
Okay. When you say RVR pack, for me it sounds like a downloadable content and not like a full expansion or content section.
It's intentional. We're not using the word expansion because I think that gives people a certain predisposition to what it is. We released an expansion last year, 8 months after we launched, and I know players are always like, we want more. But generally the cycle of expansions, you could go a year or 2 years before seeing anything next. And we launched, we then released a free expansion. We then released Wild Hunt, which was this huge new kind of play experience, which was a pack in and of itself. And now a year later, we're looking at doing more content. And what we want to say is, it's not an expansion because we don't want people to think, oh, then definitely new careers and they start measuring up all the things they think it is.
And on many sites you could read thoughts about what may they announce with Skaven.
Yeah,
the players hyped it more than
exactly, and we don't want the players to hype it, and that's one of those things that I love the players and they're really excited, and I want them to be excited about it, but we don't want them to go too far, and so that's why we only give a little bit of information at a time, because we want to make sure that we don't ever want to take anything back. I don't want to ever get asked about cities ever again. That kind of question, if that's on your list. And
I have no city question.
Okay, good. And so we call it an RVR pack because we're thinking about how the MMO industry right now is looking at new content. And to me, I think it feels like the MMO industry is shifting. And there's a lot of people that are saying, I want to pick and choose my content. I don't want to just buy this huge thing. I don't want to commit this huge amount of money. And so what we're saying is we're going to be offering several different pieces. We're calling the 3 pieces of the first pack power, progression, and personality. And so each one of those is kind of a theme or hint to what it contains. And what we're saying is, okay, maybe you don't like personality items, then you don't have to buy that one. And so you can take that at a much less financial commitment. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to extend that. And by that token, that means we can continue to do that at the pace that our players want to eat up content, because they want to eat up content all the time. And so we're trying to kind of match that.
Not only that, it definitely allows, like Carrie was saying, people can pay for what they want. It pretty much, we're delivering the content that the players want, but on their terms.
Yeah.
I mean, some people could care less about things like vanity pets and outfits and stuff like that. And that's not saying that's what one of them is, but I'm just saying those are the kind of things that some people really don't care about. They really are all about the fight and things that draw them more to RVR. So we want to give you that option.
But you plan free content too? Or will
we'll continue to do free content updates, but we're also, this is just the first one that we're actually going to be charging for.
And this goes hand in hand with some other kind of one-off or real money paid services that we're going to be offering.
One of the things we've also talked about is just that we're going to be offering server transfers. We're still figuring out the rules for all of that because we don't want people overloading some servers and leaving all one particular server. But so things like server transfers, we're trying to offer. Players have been asking for that for a while. I'm talking about doing name changes as well because people have been asking for it, and it's like, okay, here, we can make some new services for you guys.
Okay. Server transfers is a good topic. I play on Kauerburg, the low-populated German server, and most of the time I swing order on Drachenwald because there are more people. There is action. Are there any server merges planned?
No, so we haven't. Oh, sorry, I should take it back. We do have one server merge plan, and that's for our Russian community. Just because they have 2 servers right now, and because of how many time zones that Russia is, it's huge. And so we think we can get them all onto one server, and they're actually going to be the first region to have cross-realm on the same server, and that's just because they're going to be down to 1. So right now we don't have any plans for merges, but we're always evaluating the population and taking a look at that. One of the things that we noticed when we assumed responsibility for the European market from Goa was that a lot of players started to intermingle. So what we saw was Americans playing on Carrie Norn and Carrie Gouskos, which are the very high populated English servers in Europe, and then European players playing on Badlands, which is our highest population in America. So you're one of them. And so what we found was really interesting was that the peak times were lasting longer and they were staying higher for longer because we were seeing this sort of wave as it goes through ripples, it goes through the United States and then into the European prime times. That it was, or sorry, the reverse, the prime times in Europe and then to the United States. We were seeing just people would play and play and play and play and play, and so we're seeing like kind of general bump to population on all the high pop servers. So when we're looking at first the transfers, we're going to look at a way to make it so that server transfers is good for the low population servers. I know that's really hard to do, so we need to take that one step at a time. If we offer server transfers and a low population server becomes lower, then we'll look at merges. But right now we've got nothing planned other than Russia.
Okay. What is with siege weapons? Most of the siege weapons are useless for players, and only oil and rams are used frequently.
You know what? That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm going to answer that question. We are specifically looking at doing something pretty cool with Siege that makes it more useful and more powerful.
Reach walls.
Which is
something we can't talk about just yet.
Yeah, we agree that the siege. We want siege to be one of those things where as soon as the siege comes up, it's like, oh my god, kill the siege, kill the siege. So we're on the same wavelength there. We've got it. We're there.
Okay. Quick answer: rideable vessels like steam tanks in Avia.
Probably not.
Great idea.
Yeah,
and it's definitely something we've discussed as a kind of a wouldn't it be cool thing.
Doom wheel.
Doom wheels, yeah. Carrie's got a thing for doom wheels.
We have thought about it. We have lots of documentation about what we would do if we did that, but probably not in the cards.
I think the zones are too small.
Yeah, and it requires so many art changes. That's really the main thing for us is there's so much art that would need to be revised that we spend so much time wasted on tinkering with the current zones and widening them and making them flatter that I think that we would do other things. But don't get me wrong, I love the idea of rideable doom wheel.
Are there any new plans to push the players to open RVR?
Yes.
The all against odd stuff helps, but I think the tokens in scenarios are more important for the player.
Yeah.
Than the open RVR token.
Yeah, so we completely agree. Against All Odds was really the first taste. And what we're doing with Against All Odds is now that it's out there, that's why we pushed it into 136 and some of the first little bits of the open RVR stuff because we want to see how players respond. And if they respond well, then we'll probably continue along those lines. So we have a lot of ideas about other ways to push people into open RVR. We always get the same feedback, and they contradict each other. We hate the Zerg. Why do you make us fight the Zerg? I want to go to another zone and fight against zones, and that's it. And then we hate PvE. All we want to do is fight against other players. Why don't you force us to fight each other? And so those two things conflict. So we think an example of Against All Odds is something where we're encouraging people to fight each other and not Zerg.
but it's not mandating it, because we can't tell the players how to play. They're going to play however they want. So we're just trying to kind of go, hey, you really should do this instead. And you're right in that something like scenario weapons that we have, that's the kind of thing that really incentivizes players. And we know that at the end of the day, it's going to be stuff like items that really drive them to do that kind of thing.
But then again, yes, we are very focused on ORVR right now, but we've said this in several Q&A sessions on Ventrilo, is that scenarios are an equally important part of our game. We want to focus on ORVR right now, but we want to make sure that we're conveying to people that are scenario lovers that there is a large segment of our population that loves scenario gameplay.
Yeah, I think we've shown that with our 1-3-4 changes and what we're doing with scenarios, and the fact that we've got this new 6v6 scenario that's coming out, in the 1-3-6 live period, sometime soon, probably next month or two. And we've shown love for scenarios, and so we're kind of going now. We love ORVR. I prefer ORVR. I think Andy prefers scenarios.
I prefer scenarios. I'm all about small group play.
I like both. When I have a good group, I like scenarios.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I'm a solo sorcerer, then I hate scenarios.
Well, I think for me, actually, because my first MMO ever was Dark Age of Camelot, and for me, there is nothing quite like that feeling of being in that area outside is not safe, and you have no idea where they're coming from, and you have no idea what's going on, and it is like, there's just a thrill, and then all of a sudden you see this huge mass of people come running, and you see all the red names, and you're like, ah, and like, so for me, that's my joy, but we do love them both.
Yeah. That's something in Warhammer that I miss, because when there is a Zerg, a huge Zerg, in a zone, you can't
can't avoid
run around.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're looking at,
Avoid.
one of the things that we're looking at and taking into consideration with some of the stuff we're doing with ORVR, I'm not going to go into detail on exactly what it is that we have to consider what are ways that we can spread the Zerg out. How can we encourage things, mechanisms and things like that make people spread out and do things in a little bit smaller groups, so the gameplay feels more dynamic to individuals. So
yeah, and we want to create something where we can basically split them, move them around, or whatever, so that it doesn't feel like a Zerg, and then you can avoid them if you want.
For example, more choke points to conquer, like special cannons. Shoot on something.
Possibilities are endless.
I would say endless.
I would say endless.
Yeah.
I would say that the things we're looking at for ORVR, what can we do to make keep sieges more dynamic? What can we do to make the actual ORVR, like the zone battle, more dynamic? One of the things that one thing that I can say that we are doing the victory points.
Oh yeah.
So we are going to be redoing how the.
Wait, I was going to just do the motion while you said it. Killing victory points, domination timers.
Victory points and domination timers are going to go bye-bye. We're going to be implementing, and that's all we're saying.
Again, it's that kind of, we get conflicting feedback. A lot of people say, I don't like what they call Wait Hammer. I don't like sitting around waiting for the domination timers to expire.
For the record, we don't either.
We don't either. And then they go, oh, the campaign flips too fast because it can run into the cities. I mean, some servers, the cities pop several times a day, many times a day. So again, you go, how do we deal with it? So what we're doing with the ORVR campaign, with the ORVR pack, is not artificially inflating the time that you have to sit around and wait for new stuff. We want it to be an active engagement that you're doing while you're waiting to acquire enough to kind of move the campaign forward. So that's kind of where we're going with all of that. And all the stuff we're doing with the Skaven and the Skaven RVR area hooks into all of that. So it's all kind of intermingled and related. So we're making pretty massive changes, but we wanted to brag about the fact that we got rid of domination timers.
At the same time, we also want to make sure that we know the city happens too frequently.
Yeah.
We know that. And that's what Carrie was saying, everything that we're doing, we want to make the city, because we feel like the city is very successful, actually. The changes in 1.3.5 to the city have been very positively received. Yeah, there's a few bugs here and there, but, overall, the city experience is really that. It's an experience now. It's an epic experience, and the way to keep it epic is to make sure it doesn't happen 5 times a day.
It's not that epic when you are in a defender instance without attackers.
Well, that's another thing is that we are always monitoring how many instances are popping that that are uneven or unbalanced, and so we've got little gnomes in the background kind of working on things in the machine, trying to make sure that happens as little as possible. That's something we're pretty constantly monitoring.
You mentioned the changes to the campaign. Will it ever be possible to recapture a locked zone through the back door?
Actually, it would be possible, but that's one of those things that we're still. It's actually it's not to say it's a detail as it is a small thing, but it's actually a piece that can come after we kind of do the rest of the hashing out of the campaign. We're going to kind of let the players help us decide. That was one of the reasons why I think, and I agree with Andy that the city's been really well received. But one of the reasons it worked so well was that we got the players in early. We do things called in development posts. We start with our core testers first, and we have a group of both, American, and then European core testers that come in and they help us and they give us feedback really, really early on with design. And then once we've vetted that and we've iterated on that a little bit, we then move on to the rest of the forum community and go, all right, guys, here's some stuff we're thinking about doing. What do you think? And they help us iterate. And then that combined with our public test events, I mean, I think we had like 13 public test events for the city. We try to do as many as possible. We let the players come in, break it if they can, tell us what's wrong, all that stuff. So part of that is going to come when we kind of work with the players and get them to start playing through the changes that we're making to ORVR and let us know. Because once they pull their characters over to the test server and they start hammering on it, that's when we're going to get the oh, right, it's got to be this way instead of that way. So it's possible.
From my guild leader, who leads our warband. Will it be possible to add a way for a warband leader to mark spots on the map and the radar for the players in the warband?
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about. It's one of those things, the feature that we'd love to put into any version, but it's not something we're going it's not a major feature of the RVR pack. But you know what? I'll write it down just because it's your guild leader.
Scenario question. It happens really often that a scenario starts and I'm alone.
Really?
Yes.
So scenarios ending imbalanced or not firing off. The way that the system works is that you have to have a threshold or a certain number of people actually sitting in the queue for a scenario to fire off for you. And that's the part that we can actually control.
So we've been tweaking that more recently. Have you noticed it more and more frequently or more like a couple months ago? We go back and play, and if you're still seeing a lot of it, let us know. So we've been tweaking on the back end, and we're pulling down all the metrics for how often it's empty or in an imbalance. We do the same thing with the cities. So we've actually been tweaking the back end recently in the past couple of months and just going, let's see, how many people want to have a high number of people in the queue? That's great if you want to make sure they don't start empty, but then it also means that they'll start less frequently. So we're trying to find that sweet spot between the chance that by the time you start, everyone says no and then there's nobody with you, and the waiting a half an hour before a scenario will launch.
Okay, I know the question was asked many times for combined scenarios, cross-server scenarios.
Yeah.
Any news?
No. I mean, the news is that it won't be in the RVR pack for sure. We love the idea. There's a lot of risk involved with that because of how complicated it is technically. And
American players will be ganged by European super groups.
Well, there's some disagreement on both sides of the pond on that.
So it's something that we've looked at, and we have to weigh the value of the time it takes to implement and the risk of it involved versus doing that instead of doing something else.
And risk doesn't necessarily mean that we don't think it's a worthwhile pursuit. We do believe that it's something that is worth investing time into. There are many levels of risk, both technical and time invested, that unfortunately aren't necessarily the most transparent thing in the world.
So, some PvE stuff. Will we see a port function in Lost Vale like in Tomb of the Vulture Lord? Because the ways after wipe are really long, and some people hate it.
It's a good idea. Unfortunately, it's not. It's not something we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not looking at Lost Vale in the near term. Yeah.
We are, again, to emphasize, we are squarely focused on RVR. What can we do to make RVR better and more? Because we are an RVR game.
So my last PvE question.
Well, you never know. Some of the PvE stuff that we actually have is just stuff where it intermingles with the RVR. So every version we continue to work on Tomb of the Vulture Lord and just make sure that is better and better and better, because it's sort of a hybrid experience. So go ahead, ask your PvE question.
Are there any new PvE content planned?
No, not in the near future. I mean, that's why we're calling it the RVR pack. It is strictly RVR. Now, that being said, suppose that what we do with the RVR pack is kind of what we want for all of RVR for a while. Then we might say, okay, you know what? Actually, when our players are saying, I love RVR, I want to play RVR, but I also like to do PvE when I'm not playing RVR, and we're open to that. But we're kind of letting the players decide when it comes to that. And right now, they're like, let's just let's do RVR.
I like the style of the Wild Hunt instance.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, it's coming back.
It's a very bite-sized chunk.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
It is coming back. Yeah.
And it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it was something different.
Yeah, we do love Wild Hunt, and I would suspect that if we were to focus on PvE, it would be something in that style.
That's good.
One of the great things about Wild Hunt was the fact that it was such a bite-sized, especially with the timed aspect of it in the Tier 4 dungeon. It's the really cool setting, but it's a half an hour experience. And so it's a really cool experience. It was accessible to everybody, but you got it over with and done with quickly, so it wasn't painful. It didn't take hours and hours and hours. So.
The gold spammers. On European servers, they are annoying.
Yes.
On US servers, they are horrible.
Yeah. So we know. And
you want to talk about some cool stuff?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've got already, we're just waiting to push it up when it's right, is a new function that we're doing. It basically allows people to report a gold spammer, and if enough people report a gold spammer, now we're not letting people abuse it, but we've got some kind of stuff going on in the back end that will rise their complaints to the top. We tend to evaluate in terms of our CS department, and I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't have kind of the full policy written out, and I don't want to misrepresent, but we tend to evaluate things in order of priority and in order of various levels of importance. And don't get me wrong, gold spammers are really annoying, but actually the really annoying guys are usually only 2 or 3, and so if you ignore them, you end up generally being unharassed for a while. It's my experience on the US servers.
To go to a little bit more in detail actually about the tool that Carrie was talking about, basically the function that and this is only one thing we're actually going to be introducing. There are other things that we don't really want to talk about because we don't want to give the gold spammers a heads up, so to speak, on. But for the player side of things, we're actually going to be introducing the capability of right-clicking a name, report as gold spam. By doing that, not only does it incrementally add up and kind of flag that person as a reported account.
When enough people have reported it, it lets us know.
Yeah. But it also ignores that account for the remainder of your game session.
Right.
Okay. So right-click report, they're done. For the remainder of your game session.
So instead of, because what we found right now is that it's easier for players just to ignore them than it is for them to go open up the form, type in the name, type in the site that they're representing.
Really cryptic names.
Yeah, and they're cryptic names. So instead we're adding that right-click function. It's basically the same thing as ignore. It allows them to immediately ignore them, but it also puts their name in a little bucket, and that helps to float them to the top if there's going to be any problems. And that's one of the things that we're doing. Because we've been looking at gold spam and all the kind of nefarious activities, and that's something we're always investigating and always working on. And so we've got some cool stuff going on in the background. But as Andy says, we don't want to.
Okay.
No.
Myself, I ignored them with that on. Okay. One line I received. The rest of the spam.
Spam me out or something like that.
But now they send PMs.
Well, see, now, with this new tool, they won't be able to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Once you right-click and report them, it'll be done for that play session.
Do you know do most of the gold sellers use trial accounts, or do they use full accounts?
They use a variety of options. They do. I mean, and it's pretty well known that gold sellers do things like use fraudulent credit cards. They use trial accounts. They hack accounts. I mean, the gold sellers are not a problem that's unique to Warhammer. It is endemic. It is throughout the industry. It's an issue. We are very proactive, and we will continue to be proactive to do everything that we can to discourage that kind of activity in our game. And we're going to do everything we can to increase our tools to fight it, and to give players as many tools as possible to fight that themselves.
And 2 days ago, I received a link from a community member with hacks for Warhammer, hacking tools. And in the board, they proved that the hacks still work. Teleport, instant rest, and so speed hacks.
So we actually have, and Carrie can definitely speak more to this too, we actually have people on staff whose job it is, they know about these hacks. Their job is to be aware of them, to investigate them, and to fight them. And you know, one of the telling things is that, you know, every time we do a change, we do something that breaks a hack. Now, these people are...
There's more of them, and they're
very,
persistent,
very persistent.
and yeah.
And they update quickly, but we are always breaking them. Yeah. We always break them. They fix them, and then we break them again, and they fix them again. So it is a cycle. I mean, it's something we do, and you know, obviously the ultimate goal is to make it so they can't do it. Okay. Or make it so frustrating for them that it's not worth their time to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't go into details regarding our methods,
right? No,
because
and we also tend to prefer to focus on account-related hacking as opposed to in-game hacking, because in-game hackers you can find them pretty quickly, because they're usually teleporting or something. So we try to focus our efforts on the people that are actually trying to actually do something a little more nefarious than just teleport around. But we do go after both.
New 20% mounts for the races with race skins, because orcs on black Arabic steeds don't look really nice.
Yeah.
The doors look kind of funny too.
Yeah.
Sure.
We like mounts. We like mounts.
We like mounts.
We do.
So maybe.
We like mounts.
Won't you say something to the German community?
Oh, this is what I have to say to the German people. Ich liebe dich.
That was
good ending.
Ich liebe dich.
Ich liebe dich?
Yeah. There's very few words I know how to say in German. Ich liebe dich is one, and I love you, and eine Donner bitte.
I say
ein Donner bitte.
Ah, really important.
I love Doner kebab.
Yeah.